Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Previously, we wrapped up business at the Wax Museum and learned that the statue that was stolen was of the Professor, a prolific murderer who targeted only the rich and the noble. And as it happens, one of the Professor's victims was Clint Van Zeeks. So that's pretty huge. Might be Barak Van Zeek's father or brother. Definitely a closely related family member. And that murder was what changed Barak's personality nearly completely. And then the trial began and, well, we were in the first cross-examination. But before we begin, I do want to say, I'm recording this right after having just watched the Game Awards 2023. Great show, but boy, I'm stunned that there was no Elden Ring DLC trailer. I thought it was a lock, man. But at the same time, I'm kind of happy because if there was a trailer, odds are it would release in the same window as Dragon's Dogma 2, and I don't want to let's play both of those games at the same exact time. Hey, looking forward to the new Monster Hunter. The next game from Arcane Lion, that Blade adaptation. I have no idea what Blade is. I know it's a 50-year-old franchise from Marvel, but it looks cool. I'm down for anything Arcane Lion makes. No Rest for the Wicked, that new Visions of Mana RPG. I think there were a few others that caught my eye, but yeah, great show overall. Anyway, let's begin. The corpse that went crashing through the Crystal Tower had a broken neck.
Hold it!
Are you suggesting that's because he fell from a considerable height? Exactly, which highlights something else about this whole rum business. What's that? The fact that the instantaneous kinesis itself was a success. Oh. After the explosion, the cage with the fella inside suddenly appeared out of nowhere in midair. So although the experiment ended in disaster, the so-called instantaneous kinesis did actually occur. Remind us, Professor, what was the cause of the fatal disaster? I made a minor miscalculation in the angle of the beam projection, that's all. That was my mistake.
Hold it!
So the angle of projection is critical, is it? And you calculated it yourself, personally? Absolutely. The calculation is far too complicated for anyone but me to carry out. Only, you got it wrong, didn't you? Yes, that's right. That's the point. The calculation is so complicated, even I can make a mistake. Do people fall for that brazen confidence? I should try it. I took into account the subject's height and weight, the wind direction, the ambient temperature. I considered every possible variable, so I just don't understand how this could have happened. Obviously, then, you had to include the weight of the clothes Mr. Stinky was wearing at the time, I suppose. Crackling comets! The answer should have been 3! So much for safety first. The 3 must be for safety third. But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound.
Hold it!
Another fatal injury, you say? That doesn't make any sense. I didn't think I'd have to spell this out, but here we go. Just because there were 2 fatal wounds doesn't mean I'm saying the victim had 2 lives to lose, does it? Too right. Obviously, at first, we thought the bloke had died due to the spine snapping in half as well. But you're saying that's not the case? You'll get your answer once I've finished my fish and chips, if you don't keep butting in every few seconds. But we all know that's a bottomless bag. The victim plummeted 30 feet into a glass tower. It would be reasonable to assume that as the cause of death. Right, that's what we all thought. But it was a red herring, wasn't it? There was a lesion in his chest where he'd clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart.
Hold it!
The defense knew nothing of this crucial information. The prosecution received this report from the forensic investigation team only this morning. That was the first we knew of it as well. I can only apologize for the impossibility of informing the defense. Sarcastic and insincere, thanks. So, what was the nature of this sharp object? Among the accused tools that were in use at the demonstration, one is of particular interest. This. Oh yes, that would appear to be some kind of screwdriver, wouldn't it? Aha! There he is! My trusty little companion, Andrew! Oh, Andrew. Of course. Do you know each other already? He's one of my dear friends, like all my tools. I've named them all, you know. We're one big happy family. Andrew is my flathead screwdriver, of course. His brother Michael is a crosshead. Well, it would appear that your beloved Andrew has a red stain on his shank. That isn't... It's blood beyond all reasonable doubt. No. And that's not all. The long, sharp shape of this Andrew fellow is completely consistent with the victim's wound. What? What? Order! Order! The court will enter this friend of the defendant as evidence. Damn it, Andrew. So one of the Professor Hairbrain's tools is the murder weapon. Great. Oh, didn't we find it lodged deep into the mechanisms of the machine? That's interesting. Let's take a look at it. Yep, that's glistening blood, all right. Whoops. This is blood. Mr. Stinky's, no doubt. This is the problem with looking at murder weapons. Man, it feels so hollow without any weird little girl to talk to. I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor of the kinesis machine. Which could be important information, so I should definitely make a note of it. Oh, this is a different one! There's two! Wait, where's the other one then? Was it taken from us? I forget. Oh. It was found poking through the grill in the base of what remains of the kinesis machine. It has a very distinctive handle. Yeah, maybe we were supposed to say, no, how could it have been in the body? So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fella's the only one who could have done it.
Hold it!
What grounds do you have for saying that? Ha! Do you really need to ask? There were only two people on that public experimentation stage in front of the whole crowd. The victim, Mr. Stinky, and the accused, Professor Hairbrain. And we know for certain that before the experiment, the victim was alive. That's right, I saw him with my own eyes. Furthermore, following the explosion and kinesis, nobody went anywhere near the body. In other words, only someone else on stage with the victim could possibly have done it. Well, hello, you've got an idea.
Excuse me!
Professor Hairbrain, do you have some information that may be relevant here? Professor! Sorry. I was just calculating the optimum coefficient of electrolysis to separate molecules in the human body. And the witness stand is the best place for that? It seemed as though you might have something to say about Inspector Gregson's last remark. Yes, that's right, of course. He just said that nobody else could have done it, didn't he? Yeah, that's right. Who else could have stabbed the victim, eh? I don't know, but there's no way that I could possibly have stabbed Mr. Stinky as you say. Huh? Explain, please, Professor. The name Professor has been kind of tainted. Of course, this cold-hearted policeman may not be aware, I suppose. But humans are warm-blooded mammals with blood running continuously through their veins. I had heard. Then surely you see. If I'd plunged something the size of Andrew into the man's chest, the whole stage would have been a bloodbath. No, a blood swimming pool. But thousands of Londoners were watching me at the time. And yet not one of them claims to have seen a swimming pool of blood. Well, no, I suppose not. You see, not one. True, I didn't see anything like that. Well done, Professor. That was a great counter-argument. Order! Order! Pray forgive the discourtesy if I savor a drop from my hallowed chalice to accompany my old friends adducing. As what? As, like, no, not adjudicate. Here's to you, Albert. Oh, you're too kind, Barak, but I'm really not a patch on you. No, you're not. No? You've neglected to mention one crucial possibility. I have? A particular situation in which very little bleeding would result from a stab wound. Ah, of course. Inspector, enlighten the court, please. Yes, sir. Where are they going with this? Very well. You will amend your formal testimony now, Inspector Gregson. The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body whilst he was beamed through the air.
Hold it!
Why would you think that, Inspector? With any wound, it's only when you pull the weapon out that profuse bleeding occurs. Whilst it's still lodged in the body, it acts as a stopper of sorts, for want of a better word. I see. You don't need a medical degree to be aware of this fact. It's common knowledge for any investigator. Ugh, where's Susato-san when you need her? If you ask me, this bloke masked what he was doing from view with his body before stabbing Stinky in the chest. Then he beamed the victim off the stage with his fancy device, the screwdriver, still where he planted it. I would never do such a thing! Not to my precious tools! I would never use them for such dirty work! You only use tools for their intended purpose. That's common knowledge for any scientist. The fact remains the lack of blood at the scene can easily be explained, as the prosecution has demonstrated. So that's all the testimony I have to work with. I had no idea the victim had been stabbed. That changes everything. Did Van Zieks keep that to himself until now on purpose, to gain the advantage? Oh well, I suppose all I can do is press these witnesses for as much new information as possible. The corpse that went crashing through the crystal tower had a broken neck. Oh wait, right. Bit on autopilot there. But I know I need to present on this. Au contraire.
Objection!
You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal? Look, there was no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is if the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping any heavy bleeding. It's common medical knowledge, my learned friend, even on your side of the world. Yes, but about this screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves, on the experimentation stage. What? It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine, poking through a metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Grigson? Oh, well, now you come to mention it, yes. Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him look, nothing more. I was very clear he wasn't to touch a thing. Yes, that's true. This screwdriver was in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it? Well, what are you getting at? If this tool had still been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. Ah! That's right. It should have been beamed across to the Crystal Tower along with Mr. Stinky, and been found still lodged in the victim's chest. Ugh! Wag! Well, we got him there. Ordar? Ordar! How do you explain this, Inspector? I don't. It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously that should have been beamed to the destination as well. This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments on the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. My lord, if the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in its argument, we can only conclude that the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lord Van Zieks is stumped. Oh my god, that was shrill. Do you have something to say, witness? Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equations hold. Mr. Naruhodo, don't worry. About what? Without delving into the details, there is no inconsistency. What? Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Stinky's chest, My trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on the stage is consistent with my calculations. What? What? Oh, come on. My dude. Oh. It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Van Zeeks, was that a joke? Wow, he's in good mood today. Clearly we should hear the accused's explanation. Oh my god. I nearly said in a good spirits today, and that would have been a joke, because alcohol is spirits. And he's... I missed it. I fumbled it. Or should I say this brilliant scientist's explanation? Just when I'd found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument, scientists... Very well. The defendant will testify again. Provide us with a scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold. In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord. He said it. Oh, this is one prophecy I do not like. Apollo's not born yet, thank you. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states the kinesis cannot transport metal, though, hence the metal weapon would have stayed put. Okay, well... We got a medal on his glasses. Yeah, he's got metal on his glasses. And maybe on the button of his jacket as well. That was easy. Hence the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Stinky was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. So the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis. In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, its subsequent discovery on the stage, despite the victim being found elsewhere, is not an inconsistency. And therefore, Professor Albert Harebrain could still have been the killer. My great hypothesis holds, you see. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason. I was not addressing you, witness. Professor Harebrain. Yes? Whose side are you on here? I don't take sides, Mr. Naruhodo. No. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist, after all. Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell. Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruhodo. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. Hold it! I think I already solved this one, but I want to see the dialogue anyway. And yet, your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way. No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those were the words of a certain scientist I hold in the very highest esteem. But you realize that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you? No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know. Words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is this scientist? I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember that magnificent genius's name, you'll be the first to know. It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to mind. You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. This scatterbrain even forgets my name at times. So Lord Van Zieks really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over. Ooh, burn. Frostburn. My hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transport metal, though, hence the metal weapon would have stayed put.
Hold it!
Your hypothesis states it, so this isn't proven then. No, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one, based upon thousands of calculations. But it is widely known that metals can be decomposed by electrolysis. Yes, of course, so I am right. My hypothesis is clearly correct. What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy? It's the whole reason that the birdcage is made of wood, you see. Sorry, the birdcage? Yes, that's what I call the C. obtusa cage in which Mr. Stinky was placed for the kinesis. C. obtusa? Ah, the jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does indeed seem to be made of a timber of some sort. I'll thank you not to refer to it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship. In short, any weapon lodged in the victim when he was beamed away by instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on the stage if it was made of metal, correct? Also, hold on. Is a bird cage not a form of incarceration? It's called a cage. Yes, that's it. Yes. It all fits perfectly with the mathematical model. But the ultimate conclusion, then, is that the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict this fatal injury on the victim, is it not? Ah! Oh, indeed, sir. Someone beam me out of this nightmare. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all.
Hold it!
You seem to be pleased by that. Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you not pleased? No. I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Stinky losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse, I know that. No, you're quite right. Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Stinky? Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I'd only met him 2 or 3 times. And we only ever discussed my hypothesis and the project, and the research grant, of course. Mr. Stinky was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible.
Hold it!
How did you come to know Mr. Stinky in the first place? Huh. A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work. That's pretty little. It's pretty little. I'm so mad. That's a scientific journal? Good gracious, I should need new spectacles. I might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise, but at the time I had no money. I'm so mad. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered down water out of a tiny little glass. Okay. Watered down water, that's a new one. But Mr. Stinky read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory. And offered you money to help fund your work. Exactly! That's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things. Mr. Stinky provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the three of us produced that fantastic machine together. The machine that you brought to the great exhibition to demonstrate. We had to apply to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit, I think. I didn't understand all that side of things. Mr. Stinky took care of all of it. He was a wonderful man. Really, I owe him everything. Now, I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. Whoops. That's the extent of the testimony, then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him doing any more damage. He's already basically proven that he could have been the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder, what if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? Alright, I need to press that last statement.
Hold it!
When you say that you built the machine together, does that mean that you were involved in its construction? Yes. Well, not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer. Little remains of your creation now, though, following the explosion. Repair will no doubt be impossible. Yes, I realize that, but still. If someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. But Mr. Stinky and I toiled over that machine for so long. We put our hearts and souls into it. I have to protect our work. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because what happened was an accident. That's the extent of the testimony, then. Right. Fundamentally flawed. No pressing necessary. Your hypothesis states the kinesis cannot transport metal. Well, Professor, would you care to explain his glasses?
Objection!
Professor Hairbrain, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Stinky is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim. What? Metal? No. Metal can't... Metal? No! We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should also have predicted that the metal-rimmed spectacles would be found in the same place. Ah! My hypothesis! My hypothesis! Professor Hairbrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. Uwag! Got him there. Ordar! 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 Counsel, what is the implication of this? If, on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound. I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of all my work. If I could say something here in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society. Yes, juror number 4, go ahead. As a man of science, there is one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science. What? Wait, great Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect? Okay, calm down, Doc Brown. It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder, and a fraud. I say the wreckage of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. I think he has the paper from the event. No, never! That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis. It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. What the devil is that blasted act all about, eh? Who made up such a daft rule? I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? I mean... No, we want him to get his hypothesis proven wrong. Our job is to get him not guilty, or at the very least, prove it was an accident. If I raise an objection and say, no, the hypothesis worked, that would mean I just completely going against what I just did. Wait and see. I think, my god, this might be the first time wait and see is actually the right thing to do. Maybe I should watch and wait for the time being. My feeling is that the machine requires a thorough examination. Oh, what about this special dispensation that's been mentioned? Oh gosh, this is all too much. If it's detrimental that the machine itself was the murder weapon, I think you'll find that act won't apply. Of course it was a murder weapon. Anyone can see that as plain as day. So we're all in agreement then, are we, that the machine should be stripped? If I don't do something, they'll... Why would that be a bad thing? Professor Harebrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so, what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public, he would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
Objection!
He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. If the government was foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed.
Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? 10 pounds?
It's just a banana, Michael. What could it cost? You're an order of magnitude out, madame. 500 pounds a year.
Oh, Lord. You could live a handsome on that much for years.
The Society's noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently, and plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you. I like how the beaker showed red liquid because he was angry.
No, No, I haven't deceived anyone. Least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound. The science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
Objection!
No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success.
Barak!
And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused.
Barak.
Where is this heading? I have no idea. My lord, if I may.
Yes, Lord Van Zieks?
The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand.
New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement?
They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats. Eyewitnesses?
Very well, the court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident.
The prosecution's stance is clear. This experiment was no pastiche. The accused killed the financier victim there on the public stage before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend.
Oh, yes?
It's time for you to make your own stance clear. There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me?
We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand.
As you wish, my lord.
Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes.
So I'm guessing those people in the special seats will be characters we haven't seen before. Though I will say, if they have special seats, that probably means they were on a raised area. And I'm just saying, that's prime location to fire a crossbow bolt with a screwdriver as the projectile.
Mr. Naruhodo, what on earth were you playing at just now? Or rather, what on earth were you playing at all along? My hypothesis! My amazing hypothesis! You've been picking holes in it from the start!
Sorry about that.
But you promised me! You said you'd prove that dreaded explosion was an accident, not murder! You said you'd keep my precious invention from falling into anyone else's hands. But all you've done so far is try to undermine me.
Yes, I did make you a promise, you're right. I said that I'd believe in you and fight for your freedom to the very end. But I also told you I was no scientist. I don't understand your hypothesis. The fact is, there's an undeniable flaw in your logic, isn't there?
But if I just run through some equations... Yes, you see, it's because my work is incomplete.
Perhaps it is. Nevertheless, a man died as a consequence, didn't he?
Oh no! You're right. You're so right. It's all my fault. And I have no right to blame you for my failures. I'm a disaster. Not just as a scientist, but as a human being.
Well, that might be a little over the top. And while we're on the subject, what about Barak? He's being awful. Claiming his old university friend to be a murderer, you mean? He's a disaster, not just as a prosecutor, but as a human being. Oh, but no, wait, he's the Reaper, isn't he? Perhaps he's not classified as Homo sapiens anymore. Glad that's cleared up. Can I double-check something with you? Ah, yes? What? The machine and demonstration you prepared. They were based entirely on your hypothesis, I presume. There was no trickery involved. I drew the plans for the machine with my very own hands. Every line was painstakingly drawn with the firm belief that science is the only future. So yes, it's true that my hypothesis hasn't reached maturity yet, but please, Mr. Naruhodo, you must believe in it. All right, Professor. I understand.
Counsel, defendant. The prosecution's witnesses are ready to take the stand. Court is about to be in session again. Make your way into the courtroom, please.
Well, here we go. It all hinges on that demonstration. If the professor's hypothesis is sound as he claims, it leaves him as the only person who could possibly have killed the victim. But on the other hand, Mr. Sholmes was adamant. A practical implementation, such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition, is quite impossible. So really, what should I be trying to prove here? This should be good.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready for the new witnesses to testify?
The prosecution is ready, my lord. As is the defense, my lord.
So, Lord Van Zeeks, I believe these next witnesses saw the demonstration on the day in question with their own eyes.
Indeed they did. And as luck would have it, one of them is a police detective. So the testimony we are about to hear can be considered highly reliable. Perfect. A detective of all people. The prosecution's stance remains unchanged. Though it ended in tragedy, the demonstration on the day in question was scientifically sound. And consequently, the sole person with the opportunity to have committed this act of murder is the only other individual to have been present on the stage at the time, the accused.
Thank you, counsel. The prosecution's position is clear. So, bring forth your witnesses now.
Bailiff, show the witnesses in. The witnesses whose proximity to the incident on the day in question will clarify the truth unequivocally. Here we go. What the frick? Oh, it's Gina. You're the police officer. Nice. What an eclectic group. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court to hear. Oh my god, he's a hot balloon man. Hot air balloon man. Is that a live fire on his hat? My name is Balthazar Loon. Balthazar is such a cool name. What? Yeah, that was one of the names of the three wise men, right? It was, Balthazar, Caspar, and Marcosius? No. It was some weird one. I am the impresario of all the hot air balloons in vicinity of the experimental stage. What is this little boy? Those buttons have little smiley faces on them. That's cute. Oh man. Is this like one of the youngest characters in all of Ace Attorney? Look at him. That is like a 5-year-old at best. Oh my god, what a name though. Alright, I think there's only one voice I can conjure up for this man.
My name is Wilhelm Gottsrick Sigismund Ormstein. I have come to see the great exhibition in all the way from my home in Bohemia.
Oh, that's sweet.
I'm very rich.
Okay. Oh boy. Oh, my throat. Oh, it's worth it though. Inspector Gina Lestrade, Scotland Yard. I'm a great detective. Even Erlock Sholmes agrees. I was on security duty at the exhibition, and I got up to go in one of them balloons. It was amazing. Gina, again. But she did mention that she'd seen the disaster from up in a balloon, actually, didn't she? And she clearly loved every minute of it. There were 3 balloons flying near the public experimentation stage when the incident occurred. 2 of these witnesses were in one such balloon at the time and saw events unfold from the skies above. You make it sound like they were in the clouds. It was only an altitude of circa 60 feet, very low. Well, you can't see nothing if you fly too high, can ya? 60 feet? About 18 meters, then. Wait, yeah. Why would they start out using imperial system? Did the imperial system of measurement even exist at this time? I associate it so closely with America. But, oh well. Okay, I know it's been established that America does exist in this time period right here, but you know what I mean. Thank you for your introductions. Now you will give your formal testimony for the court. Kindly describe exactly what you witnessed, especially those of you who had a vantage point above the stage. Oh boy, here we go. It was an incident in Terrebille. I am only grateful that my balloons were not damaged. There's this huge bane from the stage, and then the next second, another bane in the sky beside us. And from amidst the smoke, a cage appeared out of nowhere. I wasn't too high. The cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the crystal tower. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower. That's helpful. A most extraordinary collective account, I must say. Could I just clarify something? There's a detail in the witness's testimony that I've not heard any mention of until now. Specifically, that there were 2 explosions. More precisely, 2 explosions in 2 separate places, yes. Oh, I did think this diagram looked a bit barren. Uh-huh. When the demonstration began, the balloon carrying the 2 witnesses was around here. There were other balloons in the air nearby at the time carrying other passengers as well, to be clear. So wouldn't it fire directly at the balloon? Then, as power was supplied to the machine for the demonstration, the first explosion occurred. The so-called bird cage that contained the victim disappeared from the stage, and a moment later, the second explosion occurred directly adjacent to the balloon carrying the witness. The birdcage appeared at the site of the explosion, subsequently to plummet down into the crystal tower.
I was very surprised. Suddenly a cage appeared before my eyes with a person inside. The blast was so hot, but I didn't want to miss a thing, so I kept my eyes wide. I still have lots of money.
Precisely who is this curious infant?
I'm told he is a young noble of Bohemian royalty. Isn't the I'm thinking of the Bahamas. Yeah, Bohemia's not Bahama. Alright, okay. Apparently he disguised himself in order to steal unnoticed into the great exhibition.
Yeah, I am here in London on a sightseeing trip with my elementary school.
We will have the benefit of a child's point of view in the testimony. Do we really need that?
Oh, when I remove my mask, this is what I look like.
Oh yes, I see. A delightful face, I'm sure.
What's up with the bandage?
Yeah, everybody says so.
Great disguise, then.
The point is,
the testimony of these witnesses further substantiates the facts for the court. Namely, that despite ending in an explosion, instantaneous kinesis was successfully demonstrated. And furthermore, that until the arrival of the police, no one approached the crystal tower where the victim fell. Therefore, only the accused, who was with Mr. Stinky on the stage, could possibly have committed the murder.
yes, thank you, counsel. The prosecution's views on the matter are quite clear. So the defense's cross-examination now, please.
Yes, my lord. Oh, brother. So, I'm assuming that your balloons were not damaged. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the falsehood here is this piece of green cloth. As the diagram shows, the beam would fly straight through a balloon, right? So someone would have fallen down to the ground. Surely not enough to, like, pop it and make the carriage, the basket, plummet, but enough to damage the balloon a little. Well, I do like that, we're getting a look at, more European, or, yeah, I guess it would be European nationalities. I think this guy, Loon, I think he's supposed to be Italian, and obviously the little tyke is Bohemian, so that's neat. Yeah, I feel like the last time we had someone that wasn't just straight up British, it was like, what, the Russians? Beef stroganoff? Yeah. So nice to see. Though, look, I cannot do accents of any kind. I think I was actually kind of passable, maybe, as Russian. It kind of came naturally to me, but maybe that's just like my long years playing Call of Duty as a kid and shooting Russian soldiers in the face, but it was kind of dark. Yeah, I got nothing for Italian, man. And I honestly could not tell you what Bohemian sounds like off the top of my head. I'm sure if I heard it spoken aloud, I'd recognize it as, oh yeah, I've heard that, but when I will my brain to conjure what Bohemian accent sounds like, I got nothing. I do like that they're playing around a little with the relationship between Ryunosuke and the defendant. I do like it, even if it is kind of annoying, when the defendant earnestly goes out of their way to try and prove themselves guilty. It's not the first time it's happened, and it's always really, really funny when they do that. Gosh, I still feel though like I kind of already know how this is generally going to go down. And that is a stark contrast to the previous case where I was flipped for a doozy. I thought it was like drug smuggling and there were hollow chambers in the soap, but no, it's nothing of the sort. In fact, it was like triple murder. Quarter pounder triple murder. Not to say that predictability is a bad thing. No, predictable writing can be really good. Honestly, predictable writing can be satisfying. The thing is, it just can never be boring. Predictable and boring is a lethal combination. Predictable and entertaining, ooh, you got a stew cooking. And Ace Attorney is nothing if not entertaining. Can't wait for more. I'm Zephyr the Jester. This has been more of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you next time. So until then, please take care.